Welcome back to the Go to Go podcast, man. Episode 88, NBA playoffs. Some of the matchups finishing up, man. We're coming down. Few series left. Some teams already moved on. Nuggets, Wolves matchup already set out in the West. NBA heating up. NFL draft just concluded this weekend. Touch on that a bit towards the end as well. Jumping into the NBA playoffs, man. Let's start out west where it is interesting. Series tied up 2-2. Clippers, Mavericks. Looked like the Clips kind of with a hot start. They bounced back the other day. The Mavs almost depleted a 20-plus point lead from the Clippers, but they held on, prevailed. Series now tied up 2-2. Your thoughts on this series so far?
I mean, it's kind of playing like how we exactly thought. What's interesting is both road teams got a win so far in this series. You know, I was thinking maybe both teams win at home, but each team showing some toughness, some competitiveness on the road, getting tough wins. You know, the Mavericks game one started off a little slow, seeing that, you know, they got back into a rhythm. Kawhi comes back, doesn't look like he's fully healthy, misses game 4, and then, I mean, we'll see what he's going to do coming up here in game 5. But, I mean, the Clippers have won both games without Kawhi. It looks like right now they're, you know, able to find some sort of offense, find some chemistry without Kawhi, and then, you know, you plug him back in, and hopefully that just continues to elevate their team. And right now for the Mavericks, coming off of that tough game 4 loss, I mean, you mentioned, I believe the Clippers had like a 31-point lead or something like that. Came back, fought down, I think they had the lead in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Or Paul George hit a big 3 right before they took the lead to kind of give the Clippers some more space. But it wasn't the best Luka game in game 4. Kyrie, I believe, had 40 points, a big Kyrie game. Luka just wasn't himself. So if Luka's able to get back, and he looks like he's not fully healthy either with that lingering leg issue he's had throughout the season. I believe he tweaked it again in game 3. So if Luka's able to get some rest and you can get him as close to 100% as possible, I think the Mavericks still believe they have a shot, and I do too. I think they're still right there in it. Whereas the Clippers, you're just hoping that, you know, this team ball, this great chemistry they got going on, these guys they got contributing, can continue to elevate their play and can continue to kind of, you know, play as good as they are. So they can, it's basically, you know, that team, all of that supporting cast against Kyrie and Luka. Because outside of Kyrie and Luka for the Mavs, I mean, you don't really have anyone else doing much. The big guys are, you know, they've had some success, but down the stretch, Jason Kidd takes the bigs out. Not really much else there. So, I mean, this series is 2-2 for a reason. I think it goes back and forth, but I think the Clippers edge out the Mavs here in 6-7 games, but it's going to go down to the wire. Like I said, all it takes is one big Luka game, and that could turn the entire series. Kyrie, he continues. I mean, offensively, he's looking like old Kyrie, man. He's hitting crazy shots, getting to the rim. I mean, we know he's the best small finisher this game's ever seen, the way he's able to finish at the rim. So I think this series so far has lived up to all the hype. It's been everything we expected. And then some, a lot of chippiness, you know, PJ Walker, those guys getting into it, Paul George hitting the pose after the big 3. So there's some fun storylines in this one. And so far, out of all the series in round 1, I think this or the Knicks, I mean, we'll talk about that series, which hasn't been as competitive, but has also had some storylines. But in terms of just really fun basketball to watch and super competitive games, I think the Clippers and Mavs has lived up to the hype so far in the first round.
I think you meant to say P.J. Washington, not P.J. Walker. Shout out.
Yeah, P.J. Washington, yeah.
Cleveland. But, yeah, I think you hit it right on the nose. I think the Clippers do prevail in this series. The Mavs, it's been the Kyrie show. You saw him that 3-on-1 finish at the rim that, you know, they zoomed in. It was hands everywhere. He's getting slapped, able to finish at the rim. You said it, the best small finisher, arguably one of the best finishers and layup packages the NBA has ever seen when it comes to Kyrie. He's in his bag right now. The Mavs are going to need some help. And the Clippers, it's just about, you know, James Harden and Paul George getting that offense going in the right direction. You have other guys that step up, but those two guys, the focal points, you know, Kawhi came back for a game, sat out a game. Uh, it's kind of just up to those two guys to kind of finish out this series and get them to the next leg, to where, the matchup will be tougher in the next round. But not saying the Mavs aren't tough, but teams are a lot deeper that are already in the next round of the West. We'll speak about a little bit later on, but I think it's a great series. You saw in Game 4, Harden and PG both in getting in their bag. Harden hitting his threes, being efficient, running the offense. The second half, when they kind of dwindled down that lead, was decimated. Harden and PG just weren't taking any shots. They were kind of just standing out there, not really doing too much. So expect them to have a big impact in Game 5 as well. And Luka, if he's able to, get back on track, being the Luka we saw all year, Mavs have a legit shot as well. And that's going to move us to the other series that's tied up 2-2. It wasn't looking too good for us in the start with our pick, the Orlando Magic. The Magic Cavs obviously not getting the media coverage, and, they're getting a little bit of hate between this series, what's going on. And, I mean, it's two chippy teams. The Cavs kind of decimated by injuries all year long, and expectations going really high to really low towards the end of the season as well. I mean, you want to touch on this one?
I mean, it's really not much to say in this outside of, the Cavs offense is kind of just falling off a cliff. And, at home, the Magic got a really big Franz game, and Paulo's continuing to show that, he's an up-and-coming star in this league. So, I mean, the Cavs, they looked really good the first two games, but then Magic go home, they look really solid as well. So, I mean, if that's the case, the Cavs win this series, like in 7, each home team continues to win. But offensively, you want to just find out what's going on with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, all of those guys. Like, Mitchell can't do it himself. And with the Magic, if they just continue to play really good defense, and I thought that was going to be the key to this series. This Magic defense is able to stop what the Cavs are able to do offensively. And then you got guys like, Paulo, Franz, both the Wagner brothers. Suggs can come in, Jonathan Isaac, those guys that play really hard, they scrap, they can go off. I mean, if you get 15 to 20 from any one of those guys, that's a plus. So, I mean, this series, like you mentioned, not getting the media coverage is kind of like the boring, the NBA TV playoff series. They don't really get the national coverage. So, but I do think it's a good series. But, I mean, we picked the Magic, so I think I don't see why we should switch that right now.
Yeah, neither do I. Obviously, Cavs have home court advantage, so they would be, in 7 games, if it turns out the way it does, they would be the winners of this series. I mean, the Franz Wagner game in Game 4.
Yeah, like 31, right?
I believe it was 34.
Yeah.
Something like that. He definitely had a 30 ball. It's 34 and 13. I mean, Paolo didn't even drop 10. You had Fultz out there with some nice minutes. Jonathan Isaac, Suggs, Wendell Carter, all in double-digit scoring figures for the Magic. And when you look at the Cavs, Mitchell, he had a bad Game 4. And after that, it was Jared Allen dropping 21. He's your leading scorer after that. When you got, Donovan and Darius in the backcourt is not what you want. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, maybe injuries lingering. Donovan Mitchell's been banged up all season long. Garland hasn't been himself. Karis LeVert, he's logging 26 minutes, 5 points. Uncharacteristic from these guys, and it really is like a second half collapse. This Cavs team went from the second to the 4th seed in the East real quick, and they're on the verge of Orlando winning their first playoff series, I believe, since Dwight Howard was in Orlando. So, good time to be a Magic fan down there in Orlando. They've home crowds come out, the NBA TV coverage of games for sure. I'm not sure if they're on NBA TV when they play Friday. I mean, hopefully not. Some teams might not even be playing anymore. So, might get the national game out there for the Magic and Cavs, but definitely something to look at. I still got the Magic. I like it. I think they could get one on the road in Cleveland, no doubt. So those guys play how they've played in Game 3 and 4, no problem for the Magic. I mean, the Cavs look dismantled, no momentum on their side right now. And, tough season for the Cavs, some issues to address in the offseason with the core of players that they have. Continuing on, man, tonight's games. Got 3 matchups tonight, and one of them being the first game on. Sixers Knicks. You touched on that series being a little bit chippy and some drama going on over there, but Knicks 3-1 commanding lead. Your thoughts?
I think the Knicks close it out tonight, man. Back in the Garden. I mean, the way Jalen Brunson is playing right now, it's looking like he's a bigger superstar than Embiid. And I know Embiid, got the MVP last year. Might not be fully healthy, but down the stretch, last game, he had like 50 and 10 or something crazy like that. Like, this offense for the Knicks literally has no one else that can consistently score. So all of it is just funneled through Jalen Brunson. And when he's feeling it, I mean, you get what you got last game. You can get to 50 points. He's able to shoot the ball, the little midi, not as crafty as, someone like Kyrie. But when he gets to the rim, he can definitely finish. He has a really nice, the little floater game. He loves those little floaters, getting to the middle of the key and, just throwing those up. And then when you got guys like Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, OG, those guys, when they're open on the perimeter, they're shooting it and they're able to hit the shots. And the biggest key, I think, for the Knicks is having Hartenstein and Mitchell to be able to give Embiid, as much problems as you can, having those bodies that can try to stick with Embiid. And I just think, Tibbs down the stretch, especially the last game, we just saw that, that mentality, sending the doubles at Joel, playing that tough, greedy defense, making the Sixers, make tough decisions down the stretch offensively, and then getting out in transition and capitalizing. This Knicks team is fun, man. And I know we were saying, they need one more guy. They need Julius Randle. In the East, man, besides the Celtics, I think the Knicks can pretty much handle any team right now. The Bucks, I mean, we can talk about them, but their season looks pretty much done with the major injuries. Every single person that, you thought would step up seemed to go down with the injury or got banged up or got ejected, which is unfortunate for the Bucks. Just a tough way to end the season for them. But the Knicks right now, man, the way they're playing, that defense, those guys playing hard. And we mentioned, if you're not able to score, who's going to step up? Who's going to do the little things? Josh Hart, I think he only had 4 points or 2 points, but 17 rebounds. Those guys get it done. They hustle, and that's the kind of stuff that wins basketball games. So you have all these great role players that can play their role, that play hard, and then you have, a ball-centric guard like Jalen Brunson who can pretty much get to any spot, get to any shot, is, amazing on offense. That's a recipe for success, especially in the East where a lot of these teams have questions. So right now the Knicks, even though they don't have Randle, I think they're better without him right now, especially the way they're playing. And I think they close it out at home against the Sixers tonight. And they could definitely – I don't see a reason why they can't make the conference finals in the East.
Nah, I agree with you. Mitchell Robinson is active for tonight's game after dealing with that ankle injury, missing game 3. So he's in that tip 20 minutes or so. Knowing the NBA, more like 25 to 30 with their times. But, I mean, you mentioned it, Jalen Brunson, he's on a tear. Games 1 and 2 really wasn't JB we saw last year in the playoffs. And now, I mean, he's right back to being, arguably, if not the best, one of the best guards in the NBA. You mentioned his craftiness, his touch around the rim. He's able to float those because he has that soft touch around the rim. He's able to shoot it all 3 levels, 3-ball midi. He can attack the rim. He can finish. He's got good strength for, being a guard at his size. He's able to do it all. He's able to get his teammates involved. Josh Hart has got to be the most Tibbs guy of all time, being, a shooting guard, grabbing 17 rebounds. That's what Tibbs looks for when he runs a player 43 minutes a game, or I'm not sure how many he ran Hart, but wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhere around there.
40 plus. I mean, it's 40 plus
every time.
Yeah. Especially in the playoffs. Come on.
Embiid, I mean, it took that 50 ball from him in the Sixers to win. Maxey, he's had some great games, but, moments where he shows his immaturity and age and not being, a number one guy. Obviously, Embiid has that Bell's palsy. He's dealing with issues with him on the court, with the knee injury as well. He's gotten shaken up a few times this series with that injury as well. It's tough if you're the Sixers. I think the Knicks, I agree with you. I think they close it out tonight. Even if they don't, they will close out this series. And the thing I know the Knicks got that one game, that crazy game where that swing of points, it really shifted this series momentum towards the Knicks and gave them everything they needed. Once that happened and they were able to close out that game 4, it really was easy money for them. I think no way they blow a 3-1 lead here. Brunson, he does his thing. I think the Knicks comfortable, and I do think they'll make it to the Eastern Conference Finals as well. Pacers, they're looking to close it out. I mean, we really no Giannis, no Dame. Bucks are depleted. I mean, maybe if they could squeeze a game, get Dame back, it's going to be tough. I mean, Siakam, he's looking like a resurgence like he was in Toronto and getting that max deal. It's tough. Halliburton, he's been more aggressive, shooting a 3-ball, attacking the rim, and still getting his teammates involved like we said he should. Portis, that ejection the other night killed them. They had a good game from Brook Lopez. Kind of let it go to waste. But, I mean, if you want to touch on this one, I think the Pacers close this one out tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered all there is to say, especially from the Bucks side. I mean, you look at the injuries. Middleton, he was having a great series as well. I believe he even went into the locker room in that last game. So, it's tough for the Bucks. And the Pacers they're a fun young team, man. They playing with that fast pace, getting out and scoring. So, I think it was literally just the worst matchup for the Bucks, and then you add all of the injuries on top of it. Just a tough way to end the season, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Thunder, they complete the sweep in the West of the depleted, banged up Pelicans. I saw this coming. There was talks, not even talks. I had someone say to me that the Thunder, had a chance to get beaten. Same as the Wolves in the West. We'll talk about them a little bit later in their matchup with the Denver Nuggets. But, OKC, they're riding SGA right now. Chet playing some good ball. They're role players. I mean, the Williams, it's like everyone on this team is clicking right now. This young team, I mean, they're dangerous. Obviously, the inexperience might come into play somewhere down the road. It's such a tough conference in the West. Right now, it would be that Clips-Mavs matchup in the West they'd get the winner of. I could see them beating both teams. Obviously, they don't have the experience, but I like what I saw from the Thunder. They handled business, took care of the Pelicans. It's time for them to rest up a little bit before the next matchup.
Yeah, I mean, the Pelicans, no Zion, B.I. clearly not fully healthy, just having a bad series. I mean, there wasn't really much competition for the Thunder. It came out and said it could be competitive. The Pelicans could give the Thunder some trouble, but that really wasn't the case here. And from the Thunder's perspective, I mean, outside of, like you mentioned, the experience and size besides Chet, like the Thunder literally have everything. They have shooting. They have, the superstar in SGA. They're a really deep team. They have the role players. They have everything you would want. So the Thunder are definitely going to be a tough team. And, I mean, they're the 1 seed for a reason. And every once in a while, we get these, super young teams that come out of nowhere and have success. And if you look at that first round, it's just adding more experience. So now they have more experience than they did the last round. So this is definitely going to be, even if the Thunder don't, win the finals, the further they go, I think the better of a season it was, the more success you want to say it is, because it's just the more experience all these young guys get. The more playoff basketball they get, more situations they see, the more they see. And I think the better they'll be set up for the future. So the Thunder are a team that they're kind of like, they're not like all these past super teams where you look at teams like the Suns, maybe even the Lakers at this point. These teams that are like, even the Clippers that are playing all in, like everything is right now. The Thunder just basically playing with house money, man. Like, everything they get from here on out is just a plus because they gain that experience and then they're setting themselves up for the future. So, yeah, the Thunder, they're basically playing free. They got nothing to lose. Yeah, you want to win the conference finals. You want to win the finals. You want to win as many games as possible. But they're so young. They still have so much more basketball to play. And I would say SGA is the only player in this roster like that's in his prime. So all these guys are going to just continue to learn, continue to get better. And then a couple years down the road, that's when I think they'll be, fully ready with the experience, with the age, hopefully with the size that this team will be ready to make a true finals run. But right now, they could make a legit finals run, and that just be, icing on the cake. So the Thunder, a super fun young team, and they just keep playing fun, keep playing the way they are, keep playing loose. I mean, they could make a run.
MVP SGA. Looking at the East, I mean, I'm not gonna say too much about my Heat. Depleted, injuries, killer, no true ball handler on this roster to run this offense. Hero, I mean, about what I expected from him, to be honest. He had that crazy game too. Went back to reality. Tyler Hero at his best is, maybe a star. Definitely not a superstar. He's had his moments. He's had ups and downs, but it's just too much. Bam trying to do a lot for this offense when, not really a true offensive scorer, bucket go-getter. He could give you some buckets, but, I mean, no Triple J. Rozier's still out. Obviously, Jimmy out once again for Game 5, 3-1. I wouldn't be surprised in the Garden the Celtics just close it out in front of their home crowd, but I just want to come on. I'm really here to talk about the Celtics. Derek White has emerged into this league. Crazy game in Game 4. But, the injury to KP, I think, is going to prove very costly if he does miss some time in the next round. They would play either the Cavs or the Magic, so they might be able to squeak by there. But if KP really, misses some month or whatever, he's been dealing with that calf injury. Tough for, Boston in that category. But I'm here for the Jason Tatum slander. Every time, I don't think he's a superstar in this league. He might be a top whatever. I don't think he's a true number one option on a team that could win a championship. He has a super team around him. This team is built to win, and it's going to come down to Tatum if they get to the NBA Finals or even the Eastern Conference to step up. I just don't think he has that in his bag. From what I've seen in this series, from what I've seen in years past watching these Celtics in the playoffs, I really haven't seen any true improvements from Jason Tatum in his game. And this Celtics team, I think, is just too well built. And if they lose, it's really, I think it all falls on Tatum. Jaylen Brown's been playing good ball. Jason Tatum, his stat line might look good, but his impact, I really haven't seen much of an impact from Jason Tatum in this series. It's really been Porzingis, it's been Brown at moments, and it's Derek White in Game 4 is the Derek White show. No one else showed up on the Celtics. I mean, Peyton Pritchard's had his moments. Those guys, Sam Hauser, Al Horford, stepped up when Porzingis went down. So I'm just here to say that, and I don't know if you want to comment on this series.
I mean, from the Celtics perspective, you mentioned that team is super, super deep. That entire starting five, the Porzingis injury will be questionable. We'll have, some concerns for that team, but realistically, this Celtics team shouldn't really be challenged until maybe the Eastern Conference Finals. And if they get the Knicks, outside of Jalen Brunson, they just stop him. They really have no one else to go to. So, I mean, until they reach the finals, if they do, I think that would be their first real challenge, and where we see, if the Celtics and, like you mentioned, if Jason Tatum can really step up. But yeah, man, against the Heat, it's looking like a sad series. You pretty much said everything there is to be said. So no reason to kind of, touch on that and drag it out.
Yeah. Give us at least Rozier back, and I think the Heat win that series. But it's a debate for what ifs and horseshoes and hand grenades. I think, if the Pacers were in a different situation, I think they would honestly, if KP's out, I think they would clear the Celtics in the series. Hot take, crazy take, whatever. I'm just not buying it. And Tatum continues to not show anything. I mean, moving to the West, disappointments across the board. I think the biggest disappointment, the Phoenix Suns getting absolutely swept and, killed by Anthony Edwards in the T-Wolves. He said he's trying to kill everything in front of him, and I mean he did. He had one game where he wasn't, the best, but every other game he was highlight reels, making plays, leading this team. Like we mentioned before the playoffs started, the Edwards coming out show is here, and I mean face of the league, right? I mean, you could put him in that category. I think he is right now. Definitely up in that conversation. And the Wolves had an easy time against that Suns team. Bradley Beal non-existent the entire series. D-Book and KD, I think they combined for 83 points in Game 4 and still lost. Those two guys, they tried, their best. Beal, I don't know what's up with him, but when you have those three guys and then you basically have no one else around that team to really step up in big moments or even play some defense, they had no one to stop Ant Edwards. It was easy buckets every time. Gobert and Cat, they had some great games as well in this series. It was just too easy for the T-Wolves down the stretch.
Yeah, the main thing for this series, and we talked about, the Timberwolves coming out partying and all that, but it really just came down to, can the Timberwolves withstand, the KD and Devin Booker barrage? Can they, withstand their scoring? And with the Timberwolves and all their size defensively, with McDaniels, with Gobert, with Cat coming back, getting more and more healthy, and even Ant, playing really hard on the defensive side of the ball, it pretty much made it super easy for them to withstand that. You mentioned, the Suns weren't getting anything else from Bradley Beal. Eric Gordon is what he is at this point of his career. Grayson Allen got banged up, missed the, end of that series. So not much shooting, not much scoring coming from anyone else besides those two guys. And you look at the Timberwolves and how they play as a complete team. And then you mentioned the emergence of Ant. It was just, the perfect series for the Timberwolves. They were built to beat a team like the Suns. They're built to beat a lot of teams. And it'll be a really, really fun round 2 matchup when we talk about the Timberwolves and Nuggets. But yeah, I mean, the Timberwolves pretty much did what they had to do to beat the Suns. Can you just withstand KD and Durant and then defensively lock in with all that size? Rudy Gobert, arguably DPOY. They just got a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. And then you add in Anthony Edwards, who's looking like he's elevating and taking that next step in. 1 or 2 steps away from becoming, like you mentioned, that true superstar, that face of the league. And we always talk about, you can be good in the regular season, but everyone wants to see you step up in the playoffs. They want to see you step up in the finals. So far, Ant, he's making it happen, and it'll be a fun round 2. A true test, I think, in round 2 to see how good this Timberwolves team is.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, coming from me, I'm not sure, but he reminds me kind of like Jimmy Butler, killer instinct. He has just a deeper bag. He's younger. Jimmy came into the league not being a top overall pick. He had to work his way to being a superstar in this league, but Ant started younger. And, I mean, I just see it. He goes out there in the playoffs, and his game elevated even from the regular season, being a top player in the league, and he's able to elevate. I love what I see from him. His energy, his leadership. These guys trust in him. They put their faith in him to lead this team, and he's doing so. And staying in the West, I mean, the Lakers, we could touch on them for a quick second. I'm really just going to touch on D-Lo. I made fun of him after Game 1. He had a hot first half in Game 2. And then after that, he was right back to being D-Lo. I'll let you talk about the Lakers. But biggest question is LeBron James this offseason and what the Lakers are going to do with that.
Yeah, the Lakers were just kind of in the same spot as the Suns, I think, in terms of, only having 2 players they can rely on. And then everyone else is basically just glorified role players for the Lakers in the way this series went out. Like Austin Reeves, I'll give him his credit. He made some tough shots, especially, in Game 5 down the stretch. He made a lot of buckets for them, but outside of that, like you just don't really feel his presence. His numbers seem empty. Like you don't really notice Austin Reeves putting up a lot of points. And then everyone else for the Lakers, like you mentioned, D'Lo had his 0-for game where he didn't score. Taurean Prince was like the leading bench player or a leading player in terms of scoring for them. Rui Hachimura gives you solid size, but it really just came down to Bron and AD. And for the Denver Nuggets, you get the contributions from MPJ, who can hit 5 threes in a game. Aaron Gordon, he can go off. I believe he had a 25, 30-point game. He's going to hustle on the boards. KCP, solid. You know, he's open most of the times just because of how good Jokic is and Jamal Murray and those guys creating offense. Like, he's going to knock down shots. And then you get the role players and stuff coming in. So the Nuggets were just a deeper team. The Lakers, they had the size and a little bit of the shooting to make this series close and make it competitive. But, I mean, ultimately, this Nuggets team just has the Lakers numbers. Like, Jamal Murray, 2 buzzer beaters in the same series to send the Lakers home. It's just tough, man. Like, they just didn't have an answer for him down the stretch. And I think Reeves played solid defense against Murray throughout the series. Murray never really had like a crazy game, wasn't really too efficient. But when it mattered the most, when it counts the most, he hit the 2 biggest shots of the series. And then Jokic just continuing to be himself in all aspects of the game offensively, all 3 levels, scoring, rebounding, and passing. Like, the way he's able to control the game is just insane. He gets inside the paint, you know, deep into the paint, and his touch around the rim, and then even shooting the ball with that high arcing 3-point shot. Like, there's just nothing Jokic can't do on offense, and it's gonna be a fun matchup between them and the Timberwolves. I'm gonna just say that.
Yeah. Before we touch on that, Jamal Murray, games 1 through 4 didn't go crazy. Game 5, he dropped that 32, his best game, and I said it before this playoffs, that 2-man pick and roll. You get a screen and roll, Jokic and Jamal Murray. They went to it twice, 2 buzzer beaters. The first time, got the switch on the AD, tough midi. That's a tough shot. I mean, that's great defense by AD. Had a terrific closeout. This time, Reeves sticks Jamal Murray hand in his face. He just elevated over him and was unfazed by terrific defense, fighting through, you know, the Jokic screen. And, I mean, you're so worried about Jokic. Jamal Murray slips by. He's just turned into a, you know, buzzer beater, shot clock game winner for the Nuggets. And that 2-man down the stretch, you know what play they're going to when they need a bucket. So you know it's coming, and sometimes you just can't stop it no matter how good you play the defense on them. Wolves Nuggets, I mean, I don't even want to touch on this too much, but I think this series obviously going to be getting your popcorn ready for this one. The Ant versus the emerging T-Wolves versus the already, you know, solidified Denver Nuggets being the kings of the West. The Jokic, the Murray show. And is there another guy that could step up for the Wolves? Can the Wolves slow down Jokic? Are the Nuggets role players? Is the Aaron Gordons, the Michael Porter, who Michael Porter had arguably the best series for the Nuggets. Every game contributed every time, scoring. He was doing everything for him. So who's going to slow down first? I don't know. Obviously, I think I want the Wolves to advance, just being personal of how exciting they are to watch, and the Nuggets already been there. But I think this is going to be, you know, if not the best series of the playoffs, one of the best in an entirety. So,
yeah, I mean, you can say that right now these are the 2 best teams in the entire league, and like this is the winner of this is basically going to be the winner of the entire finals,
mm-hmm.
and that's not crazy to say at all, especially if you look at the East. You know, the Celtics favored to come out. Well, during the regular season, both of these teams, the Timberwolves and Nuggets, gave the Celtics some trouble, and I think both teams beat them in the regular season. So, I mean, outside, you know, Clippers, Thunder, Mavericks, those are really good teams, but when you look at the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, they just seem right now to be a step ahead. And I think I'm going to pick the Nuggets just because, you know, seeing what they were able to do with the Lakers, that experience, the reigning champs. But if there's any team primed right now to beat them, it's the Timberwolves. When, like I mentioned, you look at Anthony Edwards, a true bona fide star blossoming right in front of us. And then that size, man, we talk about how important it is to just have bodies to throw at Jokic. Well, you got arguably the best big man defensively in Rudy Gobert. Cat, another, you know, 6'10", 6'11" guy who has some really solid size to throw at him. On the perimeter, you got McDaniels, you got Ant, you know, Kyle Anderson, they'll throw him in there as well. So they really got some guys that can make some things happen defensively. And then offensively, they have options as well. So this is going to be a really fun series, man. I think I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. The winner of this series goes on and wins the finals. I think these are the 2 best teams right now in the playoffs. And this is basically, you know, the series for the championship.
No doubt, man. That's going to wrap up our NBA playoff talk. More to come next week when series are solidified, getting ready for the second round. We'll see. I mean, a couple of these series could go the full distance, 7, but interesting first round so far. Wolves Nuggets. I mean, it might as well be pay-per-view at this point because that's going to be the series everyone wants to see. NFL draft, man. Not too busy for me on my end, being the Browns didn't even have a first round pick, and the Dolphins not even going to get into the discussion of their first round selection. Kind of a shocker to Dolphins Nation, Chop Robinson. We'll see what he has in store for the Dolphins on the edge, but I know just starting with your Philadelphia Eagles, I think they definitely won that draft, getting two, arguably first-round talents in the rounds 1 and 2.
Yeah, well, I think it just comes down to, putting all of their, everything they have, draft value, draft capital, into fixing what seemed to be the worst aspect of the team. How many times will we come on here and you hear me talking about, yeah, the Eagles, this, and that, but they're secondary. That was always the but. That secondary, and you saw them get torched, and it was kind of, the whole reason the season fell apart. Well, now you get arguably CB1 to fall to you at pick 22, and then you draft and you trade up. Howie Roseman putting on a masterclass, all of his draft capital, moving around the draft, able to trade up and get, Cooper DeJean, arguably, like you mentioned, the first-round talent at pick 40, I believe, in the second round. So two guys that are going to come in and make an immediate impact in that secondary. And what seemed to be the worst part of our team last season, if everything goes as planned, if these guys are as good as you believe they are, this could be a legit strength of the Eagles team. Now, just that quick over, in one offseason, you bring in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back, you bring back Avonte Maddox, hopefully he's fully healthy, and then you add 2 first-round caliber players, arguably two of the best DBs on the board, excluding Terrion Arnold, who's a really good corner the Lions got. But in terms of top 3, I would say they were both in there. So it's exciting seeing just what the doctor ordered, man. Some help in the secondary. The Eagles got it. So if these guys can live up to the hype, play up to where they were drafted, hey, man, I'm not going to say much, but the Eagles are looking good. I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, looking at it, I had Quinion Mitchell going 15 to the Colts. I believe that was my pick when we did our NFL mock draft. They, went against the medical advisors, and they took Latu, who obviously definitely first-round talent. His injury history was the question. We had him going 26 to the Bucks. So regardless, I mean, the fact that Mitchell fell to the Eagles at 22 when I had the Eagles taking, Cooper DeJean 22, or you could have went Kool-Aid. You could have went, there's a couple guys you could have went on the DB side of things and fell to the Eagles. The Dolphins, they needed O-line. They didn't address that in the first round. They ended up getting a tackle in the second round. But, I mean, it's tough. They got Patrick Paul to tackle. It's tough for the Dolphins. You had the Jalen Phillips injury, Achilles, Bradley Chubb, his injury, but you paid Chubb all this money that's invested into him. You let Christian Wilkins walk. Chubb's taking that cap hit. Really hasn't proved anything since his big payday, and kind of went back to that shell of, his talent and everything like that. Obviously, the big shakeup of the draft was at 8 in the Atlanta Falcons, not going with Dallas Turner, who was the consensus number 1 edge in the draft. Went with Michael Penix, head scratcher. Some reasoning behind it, questionable at 8. I mean, I'm not going to say it's a good pick. I'm just not going to sit here. I think Penix is a good quarterback, can be, a solid quarterback in this league, and he can emerge. But, I mean, either the Atlanta Falcons, I'm scratching my head, and I know the whole world is. So,
yeah, for the Penix pick, I mean, I understand where the Falcons were coming from in terms of having a solid backup quarterback or a young backup quarterback to develop under a veteran. I just don't really understand the way they went about it. Like, I could understand if they had a quarterback that was already established, or they signed a mid-tier guy, a mid-level guy, but giving Kirk Cousins all this guaranteed money, putting all your chips in the Kirk Cousins basket, and basically saying that Kirk Cousins is our guy. And with that, you're basically all in right now. You're not building for the future around 36-year-old Kirk Cousins coming off of an Achilles injury. But then you bring in Michael Penix, who is one of the older quarterback prospects, already 24 years old. So by the time, this is not a guy that needs to like sit and develop, like maybe some would say JJ McCarthy, who's younger, or maybe a Drake May who, didn't have the experience and the success that Michael Penix did in college. Penix is a guy that came in and you thought, maybe we want to see him play right now. Like, he has the potential to be solid early on in his career. So I just don't get it. Like, they want to say we went the Aaron Rodgers route. Aaron Rodgers was already a well-established player in Green Bay, and Jordan Love was not a top 10 pick. Jordan Love was picked in the mid-20s. So that's completely different. I'm just not sure what is the final goal here for the Falcons. Like, I don't understand. You can't be win now and then build for the future. Like, we saw the Warriors try to do that in the NBA with, picking James Wiseman early and stuff like that. Ultimately, it didn't work out once they moved off of those guys, and once they brought in Andrew Wiggins to win now and all these other guys, that's when they had their success and won that last championship in 2022. So it kind of seems like the Falcons are half in, half out, don't really know what they want to do. I understand the idea and the vision. I just don't like, or I don't get how they allocated their resources, and they're basically saying two different things with drafting Michael Penix, what seems to be pro-ready quarterback now, and then paying Kirk Cousins all this guaranteed money. Not too sure what's going on. That'll be a fun locker room to be a part of. I'm sure it'll let Kirk Cousins have one bad game. I'm sure we'll see some stuff there.
Penix out.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah, so, Kirk's going to have a primetime Kirk game in front of everybody in his Penix time.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's, the best way to go about it in terms of what you said by signing Kirk Cousins, meaning being in win now. Maybe you needed some defensive help. But, listen, they're the professionals. They get paid to do it. So, we'll see what happens. We'll see what works out. I just don't really understand it, and I don't really think it was the best move. But we'll see in time.
Yeah, man. I think, the steal of the draft was Brian Thomas. He went to the Jags. You get, T-Law a little bit of help on the outside of Calvin Ridley. It's toss-up. You had Kirk, who's just kind of his favorite target, that deep ball guy. Evan Ingram, he came on to emergence, reviving his career. You get some help with T-Law. I think that was a good pick, for the Jags at 23. And I had the Vikings trained up to 4 originally. Able to get their guy McCarthy at 10. That's what I don't understand with the Falcons. If you had traded back, say, to... you could have traded back to 11 because I think the Broncos at that point might have took Penix over Bo Nix. But possibly not. We had the Broncos taking Nix originally. I just don't see not trading back. Even the Rodgers, the Jordan Love instance, both those guys late first-round picks. This might be studied for years to come over there in Atlanta. So, on the wrong side of history, right side, whatever it is, the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy, speed demon, just another weapon to add for Patrick Mahomes at this point. He's proven he doesn't need any weapons. So, you add a guy like Xavier Worthy, who his route running is solid. He's obviously, the fastest guy at the combine ever. So you just put it into perspective. Not ever, but Xavier Worthy in Patrick Mahomes, that deep ball. Are they trying to replace Tyreek Hill? They might have found a cheaper version of him. I know they tried to in the past with McCole Hardman, stuff like that, but they get Xavier Worthy late in the first. Chiefs traded up to get him. I did see a little joke. The Bills traded back to 32 originally to see what it was. Feel like it would be to, win a Super Bowl being the last pick in the first round.
Yeah, and then I saw other people were like, oh, like why would the Bill trade with the Chiefs? It's like, oh, you want them to win a Super Bowl? It's like they've done it already
And
without it, so it doesn't really matter. So, I mean, I
could you imagine Xavier Worthy being the guy to score a game-winning touchdown against the Bills?
Yeah, the way the Bills have gone in the postseason the last couple of years, I definitely can't imagine that.
Yeah, and the way their defense is looking as well. Regardless, I mean, you got any other NFL draft you want to talk about, anything like that?
No, pretty much it. Covered all the big points, really.
Browns go up. Michael Hall, I do want to say, second round. Zach Zeter, third round. DT and guards aging with Joel and Wyatt Teller getting up there with the age. I like this pick. Great player at Michigan. And you're able to get a defensive tackle, add some depth. That's one of their weak spots. All season, they were able to fill some holes last year with Mo Hurts and company. But those guys also getting up there with age. So drafting the young guy at Ohio State, keeping him in Ohio. I like the pick. They go Ohio, Michigan back to back, but the Dolphins is what I'm head scratching with the. You might have to move on from Bradley Chubb at some point if you're that high on Chop Robinson and not addressing this O-line that desperately needs help. That's always banged up in the first round. Teron, he's all pro. He's always banged up. You let Connor Williams walk, your star center in free agency. They haven't had luck at center in the past 3 years, seems snapping the ball or anything like that. And you saw in the playoffs what happened to Tua under pressure, under duress. When you can't get that ball out, the receivers get jammed in the playoffs. And these rushers are coming at the quarterback. It's tough. So I don't understand that aspect of the Dolphins. You want to win postseason games. You don't care about regular season games. Obviously, you want to win them to get to the playoffs. But things heat up come playoff time, and that front line needs to be addressed in Miami. So that's what I don't understand. But get a pass rusher, hopefully to chase down Josh Allen 2 times a year. Aaron Rodgers as well as he comes back healthy this year. And then, the Patriots' new quarterback, Drake May. So we'll see what's in store. I think Patriots did get a steal. Javon Baker, go Knights, man. They got a steal in Baker, I think the 3rd round. So we'll see about that. But that's going to conclude episode 88 Go to Go Pod on TikTok, Go to Go, YouTube, Apple, Spotify streams. All that. Until next week, we'll be back with more NBA talk. Until then, peace.